Let's now move on and talk Houston Texans football. Of course, unfortunately, they have the second pick, not the first pick. We'll see whether it really matters in the long run. But look, this could be very simple. Would have been very simple. They would have just lost that last game. All right, Bryce Young, let's move on. But look, seriously, this isn't about who's the first pick in the draft or who's there. This is about what they need. And we all know that they need a quarterback. But I would say if I had to pick because they have so many needs. So if I had to say top needs, I would say on offense, besides quarterback, I'd say center. And on defense, definitely more edge rushers. And I don't know, maybe a strong safety to pair with the kid Petrie, who played really well as a rookie, another really good rookie player. So maybe I'd say edge rusher, center, and quarterback is my top three.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, quarterback is number one for me. There's no question. Don't even need to talk about it. They average the league low, 4.7 yards per play. They don't have a future in Davis Mills. I think he's a solid backup. Wouldn't mind him competing for a job, like Matt Schaub type player to me, but someone that you also just don't want to have a commit long term to.
Sure.
The second biggest need on this team to me, especially if they're going to go out and get a quarterback, I would love to see them pair their new young quarterback with a new wide receiver. And with where they're picking their second pick of the first round, it is right now maybe be a little rich for where you're going to draft the first receiver. But I think Houston is going to be in a position to draft whatever wide receiver they want with that pick. Brandon Cooks, I don't think there's a long-term future with Houston.
Oh, no. He's like, his contract's untradeable, though, which means he probably is with them for one more year, though.
At least one more year.
Yeah.
And to me, a team like Houston, let's not think about 2023 when it comes to the draft. Let's think about the second year of this quarterback being in the league. That's when your window opens, right, with these rookie contracts at quarterback. And that's the way I would build this roster right now is what can we do to make this team in 2024 a playoff contender? And I think Cooks is gone by then. Mechie, Nico Collins, two solid players, but I don't think either one of them could be a number one.
So they're both strong number two candidates.
Number 2/number 3, absolutely.
So they need the number one guy, is what you're saying.
Yes, and that's where, again, you're going to get some disagreements on this. I personally think Quentin Johnston is capable and a credible number one receiver type threat. Even though there is some high risk within his game, there's a lot of rawness there. That's a match I see making a lot of sense for this team is get the quarterback, get the wide receiver, and then use the rest of the draft.
Where is their second pick?
I believe it is right around 12. I'll get you that. It's 12.
So do you believe Johnson will be available at 12?
I do think he'll be available at 12.
Wow.
I don't think any receivers will be going top 10 this year.
That would be something. That would be okay. Now, what about if they wait? Who is the top tight end prospect? Is it Meyer?
Asking me, my top 96, spoiler, I have Dalton Kincaid one spot ahead of Meyer on the top 96. So right now they're kind of 1A, 1B.
Where would they draft? Where would they be slotted in?
In the 20s, I'd say.
Okay.
Maybe late teens.
So you might be able
20s.
to pick up one of those two guys, maybe with the first pick in the second round.
It's possible. It's possible. I would say 60-40 that they're both going to go in the first round. But if you really love one of them, right, you could make a slight move up.
Trade back in. Yeah.
How
about that? How about you excite your fan base with your quarterback, your wide receiver, and your tight end with the first three picks?
I'm telling you, man, I think Kincaid, he's even more than Meyer. This is why I'm putting him in front. I think he has.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome. Yeah.
I think he's got superstar potential
I agree.
For the position.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
he's just overlooked because he's on the West Coast. You don't get the TV time that Meyer's a good player, but yeah, that guy, especially when you see him, how much he sort of reminds me almost in a way, not as a player necessarily, but sort of the way Kittle plays, like he's always kind of banged up because he's like giving his all. And that's like Kincaid, he's just always hurt, banged up, but that's because he's like the focal attention of the offense and he's constantly getting, the tough yards. So
yeah, he gets that's exactly the way he gets all those tough yards after contact. Let me ask you this though, Greg, do you see Sean Payton ending up in Houston somehow?
No, I can't imagine that. That would be, well, I tell you what, in a way, the only reason I can see that happening is just because of the fact that we know how big his ego is.
Right.
And he would be like the Messiah coming to Houston like he was in New Orleans, a franchise that has basically done nothing. And I'm gonna be here, and I'm gonna have Bryce Young as my quarterback somehow. I don't know how I work it out, but he's gonna be our guy, or C.J. Stroud, I guess. But I'll have my quarterback, and then we'll move on.
So, yeah, I mean, I just think if that were a situation to happen, I mean, there's going to be compensation. So I don't know if they would have to lose one of these picks, but that would make all the sense in the world to me that Sean Payton goes to Houston, he gets his quarterback, he gets his receiver, he gets his tight end with his first 3 picks. Now we're talking.
Yeah, I do wonder what that because the compensation is probably going to be significant.
It is.
So I don't know whether or not
it's going to cost the first round pick.
Yes. So I don't know whether it would be this year or the next year. Probably this year. So
right.
But yeah, that could be. And look, a lot of these teams that we're talking about on this show today don't have a head coach.
Yep.
So all right, and then again, center though is definitely, because let's keep in mind that Howard and Tunsil, as long as Tunsil is resigned after this year, he's got one more year. So you would think that they'll want to do whatever they can to resign him this offseason and give him an extension. And Titus Howard. Look, he was coming on last year, and he really showed himself this year. So he is now somebody that they have to find out as well, with one more year left on his deal, how to maybe lock him up. So hopefully they'll be able to lock up both tackles moving forward. The biggest thing that needs to happen, though, is Kenyon Green has got to have a much bigger year next year. We see this a lot with some rookies. They develop sometimes slowly. Green was pretty bad this year because that was such a risky pick when they made it that has to work. That has got to work.
Yeah, he was bad this year. I mean, he and Evan Neal were probably the 2 most disappointing offensive linemen in the draft. And like you said, it's okay. Year 1, we see this happen a lot in the league where, especially in the lines, these guys come back and put together much better sophomore seasons than what they initially did. But the middle of the offensive line, it needs to be built up, especially if you're going to build some of the offense around Dameon Pierce. Downhill runner, you need to get pushed off the ball and build off that strength. If you're going to march out the likes of the 2022 version of Kenyon Green and Justin Britt at center, you're going to see very similar results.
Yeah. See, that's why I said center was one of my top. Not early, but they need, even if they intend to bring Britt back, they have to have their future center, who, if worst case scenario, slides in at guard his first year or something like that. But they got to add another interior presence, because if Green doesn't work out, then they've got to have some insurance